Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2502 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. In today's Wisdom Nugget, we'll look at Psalm 33, verses 18 through 22 from the New Living Translation. In these verses, we see a beautiful shift in perspective, moving from focusing on human limitations to God's boundless strength, compassion, and reliability. This passage reveals God's faithful character and the importance of placing our trust and hope in Him alone. Let's start by reading Psalm 33, verses 18 through 22. But the Lord watches over all those who fear Him, those who rely on His unfailing love. He rescues them from death and keeps them alive in times of famine. We put our hope in the Lord. He is our help and our shield. In Him our hearts rejoice, for we trust in His holy name. Let your unfailing love surround us, Lord, for our hope is in you alone. Psalm 33:18 opens with a powerful truth. But the Lord watches over those who fear Him, those who rely on His unfailing love. Here David assures us that God is aware of those who honor Him and actively watches over them. In this verse, the Hebrew concept for fear isn't about terror or dread, but rather reverence and respect for God's holiness and authority. It's a posture of humility, recognizing our dependence on Him and honoring His place in our lives. This watchful care is not random or conditional. It's directed toward those who have chosen to lean on God, who rely on His unfailing love. This idea of unfailing love is such a beautiful aspect of God's character. It's the Hebrew word chesed, which encompasses loyal love, mercy, and faithfulness. God's love is steadfast and unwavering, and we can cling to this reliable, enduring love. When we truly understand that God watches over us, we can rest in His protection and care. We can trust that we're not alone or lost or forgotten in this world full of challenges. Instead, we have a God who sees us and is actively involved in our lives. Knowing this can bring us a profound sense of security and peace, especially when life feels uncertain or overwhelming. Verse 19 builds on this thing by describing God's role as our protector and provider. He rescues them from death and keeps them alive in times of famine. This verse speaks of the essential truth of God as both our deliverer and our sustainer. When it mentions that He rescues from death, it's a reminder that God is ultimately sovereign over our life itself. He holds us in His hand and our lives under His protection. In times of famine or scarcity, God promises to keep His people alive. Now, famine here doesn't just refer to physical hunger. It represents any season of hardship or lack, whether it's spiritual, emotional, or physical. In every kind of famine, God has the ability to provide what we need. This doesn't mean that we won't face challenges or our life will always be easy, but it does mean that God is with us in every situation, sustaining and providing in ways that we may not even recognize at the time. When we look at our own lives, we might see times where we felt depleted, whether financially, relationally, or spiritually. And in those seasons, we may be reminded on how God provided, often in unexpected ways. Perhaps through the support of others, a sudden provision, or even an inner strength to keep us moving forward. God is faithful to sustain us, even in the hardest times. In verses 20 and 21, David leads us into a response to God's protection and provision. We put our hope in the Lord. He is our help and our shield. In Him our hearts rejoice, for we trust in His holy name. This is where the psalm moves from simply acknowledging God's role in our lives to expressing a personal commitment to trust and rejoice in Him. We put our hope in the Lord. Hope, in a biblical sense, is not just a wishful thinking. It's a confident expectation of God's faithfulness and His promises. To hope in the Lord is to anchor our lives in His character, knowing He is reliable and unchanging. Our hope in God provides a firm foundation when the world around us is unstable. David also describes God as our help and our shield. God is both our source of support and our protection. When we feel weak or uncertain, He is there to help us. And when we feel vulnerable and exposed, He is there to shield us. This image of God as our shield reminds us that He stands between us and whatever might harm us. He is our defender, and in Him we find our refuge. In response to this protection, our hearts are called to rejoice. When we trust in God's holy name, we acknowledge His purity, power, and perfection. Our trust is not an ideal or ritual. It is in a holy, living God. And this trust brings us joy. Even in difficult times, there's joy that comes from knowing that our lives are secure in God's hands. Finally, verse 22 concludes the psalm with a heartfelt prayer. Let your unfailing love surround us, Lord, for our hope is in you alone. In this prayer for God's, the Hebrew word chesed, his steadfast covenant love encompasses and protects us. It's a beautiful way to end, acknowledging that our hope is in God's love alone, not in our own strength, achievements, or resources. To ask for God's love to surround us is to desire his presence in every part of our lives and every situation we face. When we ask God to surround us with his love, we're seeking a deep connection with him, where his love becomes our constant companion and shield. This ending prayer is a reminder that our hope isn't in temporary things. When we look around us, we may see things that appear to be secure, but in fact fragile. Jobs, possessions, and even relationships. While these things are important, our ultimate hope should rest in something far more enduring, and that is God's unfailing love. So as we reflect on Psalm 33, verses 18 through 22, we're invited to look at a life through new lenses. We're called to place our confidence not in the things of this world, but in the one who created the world. We can live each day knowing that God is watching over us, sustaining us, protecting us, and surrounding us with his unfailing love. When we face challenges or uncertainties, we are reminded that God's eyes are upon us, and that he understands our every need, and that he will provide and protect us according to his perfect will. His love is our anchor, and we find our joy, hope, and peace in him. So friends, as we journey through life, let's choose to put our hope in the Lord. Let's allow his love to surround us, giving us the courage to face each day with trust and joy. May this truth guide us and encourage us, no matter what lies ahead. Thank you for joining me today on our Wisdom Trek. Until the next time, may God's wisdom guide your steps, and may his love fill your hearts with peace. And if you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.